Okay, here we are. Looks like we are live. My name is Andrea Hyland, and I want to talk with you today about transforming grief. Today is actually the first day that I'm going to be sharing about grief for the next 44 or so days. And it's kind of a flashback to the past. 6 years ago, on the Sunday before Thanksgiving in the United States, I started a radio show. And actually, I'll read the words of the way that I started that show for 44 nights. This is the first night of 44 grief transformation shows I am hosting over the holidays. The idea emerged out of a heartfelt desire to provide a place of information, sharing, and support this holiday season. Through my own personal experiences of losing a brother, son, husband, friends, and pets, as well as the loss of my first marriage to divorce and a life-threatening illness, I have learned about the ups and downs in grieving and the opportunity to heal and transform a life. Sharing my own stories and finding other people who are willing to share theirs is the focus of 44 radio shows between November 21st and January 6th. And that is what I read on the Blog Talk Radio show every night in 2010 over the holidays. It really came out of a couple of things. Catherine Yarborough and I were hosting a radio show called Living on the Edge. And we had been having these really rich conversations about things that were going on in our lives during a time of rapid change and uncertainty. Now, this was 2010. And so we decided to get on the radio, on the internet radio, twice a month and just talk about what was going on in our lives. And I'll tell you that sometimes on those shows, one of us was crying or angry. We shared the realness of what was going on, where we were following inspiration and being in uncertainty. Well, it still sounds like a lot of us are in that place of learning to live with uncertainty. You know, we're not going back. We're not going backwards. We're moving forward into something new. So out of that show that Catherine and I started in November 2010, I was awakened in the middle of the night, 5 nights in a row, with a voice saying to me, "Get on the radio." And I said, "Get on the radio?" Like, okay, Catherine and I are having a conversation, but I'm not a radio show host. And night after night, I was awakened with Get on the Radio, and it began to occur to me that all of the writing I had been doing that year about transforming grief, what was it like to have grief in my life and learn how to use it as a rich experience, to let myself go into deep, deep feelings and create something out of it. It's the, taking lead and turning it into gold type thing. So I made a flip chart and I wrote down the Sunday before Thanksgiving back in 2010, and I wrote out 44 shows. And I posted on Facebook that I was going to do this. And as soon as I posted on Facebook, people started to encourage me. And friends and family began to connect me with people who had stories of grief. And so those shows began, the first show began with honoring your feelings. Honor the feelings of grief. That grief appears in cycles. And yes, there are stages. There is anger. There's the place where you're negotiating. And it comes back again. And I wanted to talk about it during the holidays that year because in the middle of all of the celebrations, we get feelings that don't seem celebratory. And it might be something like it's Thanksgiving and you're really excited and you've got people coming over who you love and you're cooking, and all of a sudden you feel sad. Like out of nowhere, you're just sad. You might even feel like you want to cry, and you say, how could I be sad? I have people coming over. I feel good about my life. But there are things that happen that bring up the memories. And it doesn't matter if you lost a loved one a year ago or 20 years ago. You might have feelings as if they've just gone. They've just left your life. And so I wanted to create a space where people could be real with grief. When you can be real with grief, when you can really feel all the feelings, when you can feel the anger, the sadness, you give yourself the space to feel it. There are things that you can do where you begin to see the gifts that are in it that actually expand to more joy. You'll hear me tell a story over and over again because it's one of the most palpable stories in my experience of my life. And that is that I had a child die at 19 months when he was 19 months old, and I was 8.5 months pregnant. So I had a child die, and 2 weeks later I gave birth. Now here we've got the deepest grief that you can possibly feel, and at the same time the greatest joy of bringing life into the world. Death and life, birth, happening at the same time. And as human beings, we are capable of feeling it all. When you shut down one emotion in your life, when you try to put a lid on feeling sad, on feeling grief, you actually shut down your ability to feel joy. So when you can be with the moment of what's happening, whatever those feelings are, and just give it a voice, give it some space to breathe, you can actually transmute that into a gift. And you know, you might not think that you can find a gift out of someone's death, but there's this amazing thing that we have of connection with human beings, where when we can love as deep as we love, have the ability to love, then we can also feel, of course we feel sad, we feel loss around the loss of a loved one. But we also can then open up to more joy. I've talked somewhat about when my son died and 19 months old, and then the anniversary of his birth came. He would have been 17 years old, so it was 15 years later. Now, I had grieved. I had moved on with my life, but I've always carried him in my heart. And there was something about waking up that day with his birth where I felt raw, real feelings as if he had just died. So I canceled things on my schedule that day. And I opened my heart to feel that loss, feel that raw pain. And I gave it a voice that day. And the next day I woke up like waking up after a thunderstorm, and all of a sudden everything feels brighter and you're ready for the next thing in your life. But there was something about that experience that actually expanded my heart. Because when you love that deeply and you can let yourself cry about the loss, you actually expand your heart, that you feel more joy. You feel like things are brighter in the world. So it's a process, and it's a process to be honored. And I say honor the feelings because it's like step by step, honor what you're feeling, honor where you are. So I wanted to talk about this again for a couple of reasons. One is that this series of 44 radio shows that I hosted back in 2010 was with 27 guests and 17 of the shows that I did on my own, where we talked about the struggle with feelings, but then we also showed the way to move out of it. We showed how to actually dance with all of the feelings. And I really felt, actually a few months ago, that it was time to bring this material out into the world again. So I'm doing a couple of things. One is I'm going to come onto Facebook Live every day for the next 45 days, and I'm going to talk with you about transforming grief. I'm going to give you some examples. I'm going to give you some tools. I'm going to bring this conversation out. Second is that I have transcribed the 44 radio shows, and they will be available on Amazon. I split it up into 2 books. The first book will be out November 28th, and it has the conversations, their radio conversations with the guests. And I've kept it. It's actually, I see it as an innovative book because I wanted you, as you're reading it, to really feel like you're witnessing the conversation. You're listening to a radio show with the words that are there. And then the other thing is that every day on my personal page and on Heal My Voice, I'm going to post a link to one of the radio shows. And the shows, for instance, in the first book, some of the authors are Debbie Phillips, the founder of Woman on Fire, Jeff Brown, the author of Soul Shaping, Andrea Rayner, who was a hospice chaplain at Ground Zero and wrote a book called Voices, The Voice That Calls You Home, Elizabeth St. Germain, Alan Peterson, Karen Channing, who does the doodling. So there's going to be different guests that I'm going to highlight who are in that first book and share some of that. But the shows will be for free. They're live. They've been recorded 6 years ago. And if you want to buy a book on Amazon, I'll be posting that link. And then in January, for anyone who wants to dive deeper into exploring something around grief, you know, and okay, anyway, I'm going to do 30 days of writing, and that is a program, and that's our annual fundraiser for Heal My Voice, where I do 30 days of writing prompts, and we have a Facebook group, and anyway, it's an experience. So there's a lot of things coming up, but if you are in a place in your life where you feel like you are grieving the loss of something or someone, and it might be the loss of a loved one, it might be that your life has changed so radically that you feel lost in the world. You're not really sure what your next steps are in the world. And certainly, after the presidential election that we just had in the United States, there's grieving that's going on. And it might be, you know, I mean, let's just put some words to it. It might be that you didn't vote for the candidate who's the president-elect. Or it might be that you're already feeling a loss of how it feels to live in this country. It could be with a job. It could be with your home. It could be that your job has ended and you're not even sure what you're able to do next. So, oh my gosh, loss is so important to explore and excavate. And I hope that you will, in the comments, you will share with me some of the losses that you are experiencing right now. I just wanted to see if there was something else I wanted to say before I close today. And I see Catherine Yarbrough is here. It's good. We've got lots of memories about this, right? Because we were doing the shows then. All right. I want to close by sharing something with you about positive affirmations. So right now, we live in a world where we have things like The Secret, Ask and It Is Given. We have all of these ways that we are encouraged to think positively because we create our own realities and think positive. But one of the challenges with positive affirmations when you are grieving is that you are sweeping the feelings under the rug. So if you can start by actually feeling and just noticing, identifying, like, what are you feeling right now? I'm feeling discouraged. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling lost. You know, if you can put some words to it and give it a little bit of space, then the next step is to put the affirmations on it, to think positively. And it might be encouraging yourself. I was talking on one of the radio shows about how one day I was walking by the mirror, and it was just a day where I got in touch with anger that I was feeling about a situation. And I caught my eye in the mirror, and I went back and I just looked myself right in the mirror. And I said, okay, good for you. You have identified anger. You are claiming that you're angry. And it could be, I'm claiming that I'm sad. You know, I'm claiming that right now. And just look yourself in the eye and tell yourself that. And say, good job. Good job. You are doing it. And then maybe you do something, and maybe it feels silly at first, but it's a beautiful way of just connecting with yourself. It might be that you wrap your arms around yourself and just say, I'm here with you. We're going to make it to the next step. And you can begin to encourage yourself. But when you actually feel sadness or anger and you just go like, snap out of it. Oh, let's find something positive here. Da, da, da. I mean, just imagine that in your house, you are sweeping up the dirt. And you're sweeping up the dirt and you put it into a dustpan. And first, before you throw it away, you take a moment and you kind of look through it. And you realize, oh, I've got some pennies, I've got some quarters. Oh, here's something I was looking for. You know, you look at what are the gifts in the middle of this mess. And then you get rid of it. But if you're doing something like you're sweeping the dirt under the carpet, eventually what's going to happen is you're going to have piles of dirt. And you're going to have to then walk around that rug because the piles are so big. And you think that you're okay if it's under the rug and nobody can see it. But that's not true. You're actually holding it in your heart somewhere. So I really encourage you to join me in these next 44 days, where over the holidays I will come on to Facebook Live and talk a little bit about the show that I'm posting for the day. So on Heal My Voice, there will be the link to the radio show if you want to listen to the interviews and conversations with the guests. There will be a book for sale on Amazon starting November 28th that has those conversations written out. There is a program in January for 30 days of writing if you'd like to come and explore deeper. And there's lots of options here. So it takes courage to feel the feelings and dive into grief. But thanks for joining me. And please post in the comments things that are going on for you. You know, what are the losses? What are you grieving? And know that you can leave it there so you can then feel this celebratory time also. All right. Thanks. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye now.